the Good Dram Show with me, Chris Goodrum. As per usual, a big thank you to everybody that watched last week's episode of the show, liked, commented, all that kind of stuff. Your support is very much appreciated, and obviously so is the support of indies and distilleries that kindly send samples for these episodes. Had a lovely email from Sunny about last week's episode. The show seemed quite happy with my reviews, and certainly if that juror sounds intriguing and you've got deep pockets, then a certain whiskey merchant will be stocking it fairly shortly. So yeah, that will be cool. On to today's episode of the show. As All Hallows Eve is literally just round the corner, well, yeah, end of the week, obviously ideal to do a spooky episode of the show, although maybe I don't think the show is spooky, but you know what I'm talking about. Basically, it just so happened that Brave New Spirits had released, I think this is batch 3 of the Whisky of Voodoo, and I just thought it was just ideal to hang on to these samples until sort of an apt moment to review them, and that's exactly what I'm doing. You will notice from the title page that there is a Whiskey Heroes bottling in today's range. I mean, otherwise it would only been 4, and cool, can't do an episode with 4. So, and it's a Halloween themed bottling, so I thought it was well, do I really need an excuse to shoehorn an extra whiskey in? Anyway, as you probably noticed from the labels, that those of you that know sort of this particular range quite well, is that it's often quite difficult to figure out what the distillery is. I mean, I've noticed that they've actually now highlighted on the label, they've put sort of like a white background against the name of the distillery. I imagine that they've maybe got a little bit of a finger wagging for the Scotch Whisky Society. I mean, certainly I had no end of problems with font size and this got to be bigger than that and all this kind of stuff when I did change the labelling on the Gauntlet's bottling. So I know they can be pretty fastidious, although I wasn't dealing directly with them. It was obviously through the company that I was purchasing the cask off. Anyway, so they are kind of confusing, but at least they've highlighted it, and it means I don't have to actually write on a label and stick it on the neck of the bottle as to what the distillery is. So yeah, that's quite cool. But anyway, as you know, I mean, I'm a big fan of that particular range. I love the whole voodoo kind of concept, the gothic element to it. But of course, as per usual, you know, that plays second fiddle to the quality of the juice in the bottle, and that's what we're going to be looking at this afternoon. And we're going to see whether the juice lives up to the artwork. So anyway, not a lot to say. You know, Brave New Spirits, I've done enough episodes of the show on them in the past, so let's just take a look at today's lineup. So first bottling we're going to kick off with is aptly called well, I say aptly, it's the Coven of the Red Veil. Great name, love that. Love the labelling of this particular one. It's a blended Lowland grain. It's 14 years old and bottled at 58.3%. It's a vatting of North British, distilled in May 2011 and aged in First Fill Saint Emilion barriques, and Cameron Bridge, distilled in May 2010, aged in First Fill Oloroso Hoggies. So interesting one to start off with. We'll see whether any grain character survives the onslaught of all that oak. First of the malts is called Call of Crows. This is a Speyside single malt, 13 years old, bottled at 51.7%. It's a vatting of Glen Elgin, distilled in April of 2012 and aged in First Fill Port barriques, made from American oak, and Glen Elgin, distilled in February of 2012, aged in First Fill Ruby Port barriques, again made from American oak. So should be interesting. Bottling number 3 is the Whiskey Heroes bottling. This is called Jack O'Barrel Creeper of the Casks. It's a 10-year-old Glen Rothes, matured in First Fill Amontillado cask, bottled at 54.1%. So we will see whether that's what it's like. Anyway, moving on to the penultimate bottling. This is back to the Whiskies of Voodoo. This is called Serpent's Ember. It's a Highland single malt. It's 11 years old and bottled at 53.2%. It is a vatting of Blair Athol distilled in September of 2013 and aged in first fill rum hogsheads, and Blair Athol distilled on the same month, except aged in second fill ex-Isla barrels, which apparently came from Lagavulin. So bit of rum, bit of peat, bit of Blair Athol. Sounds like it could be good fun. And the final bottling of the afternoon, and yes, I still haven't got round to getting another Glencairn, is the Smoking Curse. This is the Highland single malt, 8 years old, bottle at 52.8%, and it's a vatting of Ardmore, distilled in November of 2016, aged in first fill VSOP cognac barriques, and Ardmore distilled in November of 2013, aged in second fill ex-Isla barrels from Lafroig. And I know for a fact that Brave New Spirits have got an awful lot of Ardmore that's been aged in Lafroig barrels, because it does seem to crop up quite regularly and it's pretty damn good. So yeah, why not keep using it? You know, as they say, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Anyway, we shall see what that one's like when we get there. But anyway, let's kick off with the vatted grain then, shall we? Right, okay, so Coven of the Red Veil. Let's see what the nose gives us on this then, shall we? That's quite a spicy nose. It's got an almost kind of Auchentoshan-y feel, a sort of rose Turkish delight and red currants and berries. The Cameron Bridge, I think, is kind of coming through quite noticeably. Actually, it's got that slightly herbaceous-y kind of character, mind you. But then North British is probably in a similar kind of style to Cameron Bridge. It's not one. They both tend to be on the lighter end of the grain spectrum. There's a little bit of sherry there, just on the edge, but it does seem to be mainly sort of red wine focused, it has to be said. It's okay, it's pleasant. There's a little bit of wood smoke coming through. Let's see what turns like. Kicks off really oaky, sweet coconut, sweet red fruits, dried fruits. So we've got, you know, American oak, we've got the wine cask, we've got the sherry cask. It's a bit straightforward. I mean, you know, it's only 14 years old. I mean, really, it's a bit too young for a grain. Although in saying that, the kind of the sort of, I guess it's a combination of sort of the alcohol and the cask notes kind of running out of steam that you end up with. Sort of sweet, grainy, I can't even speak, grainy dried fruit coming through on the end. It's a little bit masked. I mean, it is 58.3, but it doesn't taste overly alcoholic. Let's put a little drop of water with it and see what that does to things. Okay, so that's pushed back the oak quite considerably, and I'm now getting fairly straightforward grain kind of dried fruits. Again, it's pleasant, but it's not kind of sort of, it's not blowing me away, it has to be said. Let's see what passes on. On the palate, I'm getting a lot more sherry cask, a lot more juicy, sweet raisinated fruits. The winey notes seem to have disappeared, as has the grain notes as well. There's a little bit of bitterness right on the finish, which is not too jarring, it has to be said. I mean, you know, all that oak and so on and so forth. It's okay. It's okay. It's not sort of dreadful. It's not sort of something that I think I would be inclined to sort of, you know, rave about. It's okay. It's pleasant. But yeah, bit on the young side and a bit straightforward, I think. Okay, so let's move on to the Glen Elgin. Let's see what the nose gives us on this end, shall we? Oh, that's a big old chunky, robust nose, I would say. Okay, there is a lot of cask going on there. There is kind of there's tawny fruits, there's dried fruits, there's porty black fruits, quite herbal black fruits. It's I can smell a bit of barley. I can sense the Blair Athol weight, shall we say. It is quite an appealing nose. It's got a lot of complexity that lies within the port cask notes, and it isn't totally overwhelmed. Although, like I said, it is pretty heavily influenced by those casks. A little bit toasty. There's a bit of an edginess there as well. Yeah, I kind of quite like this nose. It's a sort of, yeah, Call of Crows. I don't know quite where they. I don't think do crows kind of live at Glen Elgin? I don't know. I know they live at the Tower of London, but that's nothing to do with it, really, is it? It's weird, the stuff that pops into your head, isn't it? Anyway, let's see what the pass rate. Juicy, chewy, quite porty again. Nice combination of tawny dried fruit, black fruit, a little bit of spice. Again, I can feel the weight of the spirit character. Quite herbal on the finish, a little bit of bitterness. It's again a herbal bitterness, which I kind of quite like. Okay, yes, it is. There's a little bit of sweetness right on the aftertaste. Again, like I said, it is fairly heavily cask orientated, but I'm getting enough Glen Elgin just to sort of say, this is not one-dimensional. Plus, with the two different types of port cask, you are getting quite an element of complexity within those kind of port flavours. Let's put a little drop of water and see what that does. Probably got a little bit too much there. It's only 51.7. Okay, so it's suppressed a lot of the port character, and I'm getting plenty of that kind of slightly honeyed Glen Elgin character. Barley. The port is adding a kind of maybe a little bit more of a sweetness now, and a bit more of the tawny and a bit more toasty oak. I like this. I think this is quite a pleasant nose. Let's see what the pass like. Like the nose, the water has kind of just suppressed some of the oak. It's kind of brought it into a better alignment. So I'm getting more of the Glen Elgin. I'm getting that honeyed, sort of barleyed Glen Elgin character, and the oak is kind of like just playing second fiddle to that now. I like this. I like this whiskey a lot. Personally, I prefer it with a little drop of water because that brings in the balance, but I like the options. I like if I feel like I want sort of like lots and lots of oak character, I can have this neat. If I want a bit more balance, I can put a little drop of water with it, and that's one of the things I really like about sort of cask strength whiskies, and I thought that was really good. Right, okay, so let's move on to the Jack O'Barrel, Creeper of the Cask. So 10-year-old Glenrothes, first fill at Amontillado. Yeah, that's Glenrothes. What's the euphemism for the traditional? Yes, it's a very traditional nose, otherwise known as slightly hard. I mean, it's Glenrothes. It's hard barley. It's not Oloroso dry. It's not Oloroso fruits. It's not got that herbalness. It's got that slightly sort of nutty Amontillado kind of character. It's quite rich, it's quite full, it's got a nice softness, it's got a bit of citrus, a bit of spice, okay, if you like sherry cask matured sort of rough spirit, then if you like sherry matured sort of Glenrothes, then yeah, this is up your street. Me, it's just not doing anything at all for me, as you well know. Let's see what the pass like. Again, quite silky, nutty, Amontillado fruit. no herbalness, a little bit of treacle, some toastiness, a little bit of Glenrothes character kind of creeping through there. It is what it is at the end of the day. It's a whiskey that will appeal to a number of people, and it's not bad. I mean, there's no off notes, no blemishes. It's well balanced insofar that you get distillery character, so you can't argue with that. Let's see what a little drop of water does. Pretty much the same, actually. It doesn't really make a great deal of difference. It's possibly a little bit more spirit character. There's a little bit of dried fruit, sort of almost kind of grainy sort of notes now. But you know, again, it's sherry Glenrothes, isn't it? Let's see what it passes like. Again, I'm getting a little bit more Glenrothes character. There's a little bitterness. There's a bit more tannin. And it's got quite a drying finish, almost chocolatey, possibly. Yeah, again, it is what it is at the end of that. It's 10-year-old sherry Glenrothes. It's clean. It's got distillery character. It's got sherry character. So you know, from a technical point of view, that bottling really works. From a sort of a personal point of view, not my cup of tea, but I'm sure there'll be a lot of people that really do enjoy that. Right, okay, so let's move on to the Serpent's Ember. So this is Blair Athol in first fill rum and ex-Isla or ex-Lagavulin barrels. Let's see what the nose goes on this in. Okay, that's a nice nose. Again, we are very much oak-centric, which is not a surprise. It's a bit like the Call of Crows. It's a bit like the Blair Athol in the not the Blair Athol, the Glen Elgin. It's got. I can feel the weight, and this is the thing. They've picked spirits that have kind of quite a nice weighty character, which can withstand you know, a bit of hammering by oak, and so you get the sort of rummy dried fruits and. It's only a really very, very subtle peatiness. I mean, it is really subtle. You've really got to search that peatiness out, and it's very, very slight smokiness more than anything else. So kind of quite, I suppose, quite restrained, really. I mean, it could have been, you know, full throttle sort of rum and peat. But in actual fact, I honestly think, like the Call of Crows, the balance is actually not too bad. Short password. Kicks off with quite a lot of creamy oak in actual fact. Again, rummy dried fruits. It's got a subtleness. It could have been OTT. It could have been sort of like whacking you in the face with rum and peat, and that would be it. But there isn't. It's got an, dare I say it, it's got an elegance to it. Yes, it is more oak centric, but the oak is actually, I'm getting more American oak character, vanillins and toffee, a little bit of dried fruit, a whiff of smoke. Again, the peat is very, very faint. It's got quite a vibrant salty finish in actual fact, and I guess that is kind of being emphasised by the alcohol. I mean, it's mind you, it's only 53.2%. Only. It's got a nice mouthfeel. It's got a, like I said, lovely, vibrant, salty kind of finish. Again, I like this. I warm to it. It's got balance just about. So I'm kind of a happy bunny on that. To be honest with you, if I was going to be very, very uber critical, I would say I would like a little bit more peat character, but you know, you can't have everything. And again, like the Call of Crows, putting a little drop of water kind of knocks back the oak. I'm getting more of the sort of the barley and the weighty kind of Blair Athol oily character. That the peat has practically disappeared. I mean, it was subtle to start off with, so putting a little drop of water has kind of really taken that out. The rummy notes have got a little sweeter, but it's still a lovely nose. It's kind of, yeah, it's Blair Athol with a bit of sweetness and a bit of rumminess. Yeah. I'm not quite sure where they got sort of, what do they call it? Oh, Serpent's Ember, yeah. No burnt snake there, it has to be said. But anyway, let's just look at the power side now. Again, it's very American oak scented. I get a lot of vanilla and a creaminess. The rumminess seems to almost have gone. The peat has disappeared. The distillery character is there. So again, you've got that sort of oily, kind of weighty, barleyed kind of character. I mean, you could argue, I suppose, the fact that, well, you know, what's the point in sort of sticking something into these casks if they're not going to have a huge influence? But, you know, I would counter that by saying, well, it's a subtle influence. Yes, all right, I would have liked a little bit more peat coming through, because, you know, when you sell something as kind of like, oh, this has got a little bit of peat, I think sort of like, yeah, it puts off people that don't like peat, and people that do like peat go, yeah, I'm really going to go for that, and then they taste it and they go, well, it didn't really have an awful lot of peat at all, you know, so you're kind of a bit damned if you do and damned if you don't. But, okay, but from a technical angle, I like this bottling. I think it's got some delicacy to it, and like I said, it could have done with a bit more peat, but, you know, I still think the balance is pretty good, so, yeah, good whiskey. Okay, so on to the final whiskey of the afternoon. This is the Smoking Curse, so this is Ardmore in VSOP Cognac and Lefroy cask. Right, okay, so the theme here is oak. I mean, we've figured that one out. Lots of different cask types, and this bottling is no exception. This gives you lots of that kind of appley cognac cask. Sweet peat, more peat, obviously, but then you've got peated spirit and peated cask. So dry peat, earthy peat, a little bit of medicinal peat. This will keep the peat heads happy. This is a lovely whiskey, it has to be said. Nice and appley, good complexity. Little bit of white fruit as well, so you know, some Ardmore character, spirit character outside of the peat is coming through as well. I like this nose. It ticks a lot of boxes for me. It's got intensity of peat. It's got some sweetness there. It's got a bit of distillery character, or spirit character, I should say. So, what's not like to like? Let's see the power side. You know what I like about this palate? Progression. It starts off with some white fruits, a little bit of honey, I mean, that's impressive. And then in moves the apple notes, the peat. You get astringent peat, earthy peat again, so like medicinal notes. It's quite drying on the finish. It's masked. The alcohol is I wouldn't say overly intrusive. I mean, it's 52.8%, but it does taste like it's a little bit higher than that. Nice subtle off-sweet spice finish, a little bit of ginger, again more honey, and then we're coming back to sort of like some spirit character, getting a little bit of white fruit and apple again. It's all kind of works in really, really nicely. Love the progression of that, and that's, you know, a thing that always ticks a lot of boxes for me when a whiskey kind of leads me on a journey, so to speak. I know it's a bit of an arsey thing to say, but it's true. It kind of starts off with one flavour, moves into another, and finishes on another flavour. That to me is kind of like just what I love about whiskey, is that kind of, that flow, shall we say, and that has it. I mean, that has it in absolute spades. I really like that. Let's put a little drop of water with that and hope it doesn't actually all go Pete Tong, as they say. Right, and again, like all the other bottlings, it kind of suppresses the oak a little bit. I'm getting more white fruits and fleshy white fruits. There's a ashiness there now, a little bit more medicinal notes, citrus. Yeah, the sort of Lefroy is a little bit more noticeable now. You kind of sort of knock off some of that cognac cask. There's a little bit of apple there possibly, but it's very much about the sort of Lefroy note when you put a little drop of water, and the fleshy distillery character. Let's see what that's like. Acetate. That's lovely, lovely ashy peat now. Medicinal notes kind of disappeared. It's kind of again more about sort of the white fruits, the Ardmore sort of character. A little bit of an astringency, less saltiness, less Lefroy, more Ardmore character now. Once you sort of like put a little drop of water with it. And yeah, I like it either way. Personally, I think I prefer that neat. I love the progression of it neat. I love the intensity, although it's not too intense. It's just right, as Mummy Bear would say. Right, okay, so that's today's episode of the show. As always, a big thank you to Paul at Brave New Spirits for kindly sending me the samples. They send a list, and they know as soon as I get an email with a new list, I will be sort of they know they'll get a reply saying, "Can I have some samples, please?" And you know, they kind of, or Brave New Spirits, and just kind of send them. It's really cool, and you know, it's symbiosis at the end of the day, isn't it? So anyway, right, okay, so let's sum today's episode of the show up. Firstly, a big thank you to Brave New Spirits for the samples for today's episode of the... Right, okay, so let's sum today's episode of the show up. Firstly, a big thank you to Paul from Brave New Spirits for the sample for today's episode of the show. You know, you're going to get the sort of like the sort of can I have a sample email when you send out a new list, but it's lovely that Brave New Spirits bend over backwards to do that. So yeah, really cool. Anyway, so today's whiskies, the Coven of the Red Veil. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it whatsoever. It just, you know, it's young grain. It's never going to have a great deal of character. It has to be said. It had some. I mean, don't get me wrong, and you know, but it was all kind of wood influenced, overly wood influenced. But that's kind of like the theme for today. You know, it's like wood influence, and so not a bad bottling, but you know, not something I'd get sort of overly excited about. The Call of Crows again seemed to set the kind of tone for the whole quite wood influence, but I'm getting some distillery weight. I'm getting distillery feeling, certainly when it was neat. When it was diluted, obviously that knocks back some of the oak and you get some of the distillery character. So absolutely not a problem with that whatsoever. Really enjoyed it. The Jack O'Barrel Glenrothes, well, it's Sherry Glenrothes at the end of the day. It kind of like ticks a lot of boxes for a lot of people. So again, you know, not a shabby bottling. The Serpent's Ember, again, like I said, very much in the style of the Glen Elgin, more cask orientated, but they picked a weighty spirit to stand up to it, and once you put a little drop of water with it, it kind of strips back some of the oak, you get the distillery character. So again, at the end of the day, really nicely bottled. Oh, balanced, I should say, more than nicely bottled. And the Ardmore, yeah, I mean, that's it. At the end of the day, it's kind of continuing the theme. I feel like a bit of a broken record, you know, or stuck record, or whatever it's called. In that, you know, lots of cask character when it was neat. I mean, and then you strip that away, put a little drop of water with it, and you get more of the distillery character. I think they worked really nicely together. I thought that whoever sort of put these particular bottlings together has done a really nice job. I mean, you could argue that maybe that the sort of Serpent's Ember could have maybe done with a little bit more peat intensity, but that's just kind of being overly picky. Overall, I think that the bottlings are really good. And I certainly wouldn't discount selling them to you guys. So yeah, that's this week's episode of the show in the bag. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's oh, I know, yeah. Well, the clocks have gone back, so I can argue it is technically lunchtime from a body clock perspective, but it's, yeah, anyway. All that's left to say is, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the show. Good dramming and good afternoon.